Good morning, everybody. How are you? I hope you are fine. Today we are going to have poetry, but before we start, let's watch this video.
What is poetry? Poetry is a piece of writing written by an author called a poet. But what is the purpose of poetry? A poem is written using rhythm, rhyme, and other artistic language to show feelings and emotions. It's often short, but some poets write long poems too. Rhythm and rhyme are a part of many poems. Rhythm is the beat or sound pattern of a poem. Lots of poets use repetition and similar word sounds to create the beat or rhythm. Here's an example. A candy bar, a piece of cake, a lollipop, a chocolate shake. Many poems that have rhythm also have rhyme. Rhyme is having the same sound at the end of two or more words, like bike, hike, and rad, dad. Our poem from earlier has rhyme with the words cake and shake, and it makes me feel hungry. Another common element of poetry is alliteration. Alliteration is when the consonant sound is repeated at the beginning of words, like Tracy the tiger.
So, again, what is poetry? Poetry is the oldest form of literature. It was used before man could read or write. So, he sang and recited poetry for thousands of years before he could write them. He used poetry to express his feelings, his ideas, and sometimes to tell a story. Poetry is written in lines called stanzas, and it's like music, as it creates musical sound with the words. It uses a vivid sensory language called imagery, and it often rhymes, but not always. So, in the past, people said and recited poetry to express their feelings and their ideas. Now, what is the stanza? What do I mean by stanza? Stanza is a group of lines that speak about one idea. So, each stanza must talk about one idea. What is the rhyme scheme? It's a pattern of rhyming sounds at the end of each line in the poem by using the alphabetical order. For example, here, in your arms is where I belong. The beating of your heart is like a beautiful song. Okay, this is a stanza. Okay, it consists of 4 lines. Okay, what about the rhyme scheme? How can I pick out, or how can I know the rhyme scheme? So I must look at the ending sound of each line, and I will use the alphabetical order according to A, B, C. So here in your arms, arms is the first sound I hear. So it will take the letter A, is where I belong. Arms, belong. Another sound, so it takes the letter B. The beating of your heart, arms, belong, heart. A new sound, so it will take the letter C. Is like a beautiful song. Arms, belong, heart, song. So here, belong, song. They rhyme each other, so song will take the letter B. What do I mean by writing techniques? In writing techniques, I want to know the way the poets use to write his poem. So he can use repetition. What do I mean by repetition? Repetition is a repeating word or phrase more than once to let the reader get his idea. Alliteration. What do I mean by alliteration? It occurs when two or more words begin with the same sound or the same letter, but it must be in the same line. So alliteration here, words begin with the same sound, but they must be in the same line. Contrast. Contrast happens when two words are opposites, and this makes the meaning strong and clear. So, in contrast, we can make the meaning strong and clear. In repetition, we want to stress on the poet's idea. He repeated the words or the phrases to stress on his idea. Okay? But alliteration is repeated sound. Words begin with same sounds or same letters in the same line. What are the figures of speech? Okay? Here I want simile. What do I mean by simile? Simile is used to compare between two things. I compare between two things using the words like and as. So I say as dry as a bone. This is simile. So simile, I use it to describe something as something else or somebody as something else. I can say Jannah is as a flower. Okay? So here I am describing Jannah as a flower, but Jannah is not a flower. So this is simile. Time is like a sword. Time can't be a sword. So here this is simile because I have the word like. So when I have the words like and as, this is simile. I use simile to describe something as something else or somebody as something. What about personification? Personification used to compare object to a human being. Here I am comparing something to a person. I am comparing something to a person. Okay? Here he said, the leaves dance along the sidewalk. The leaves are the leaves of the trees. Can the leaves of the trees dance? No. So here this is personification because he described the leaves as a person who is dancing, but only man can dance. What about metaphor? Metaphor is like simile, but here I don't use the words as or like. So it's used to compare between two things that are originally not similar. They are not similar. When I say time is money, can time be money? No. So this is metaphor. This is metaphor.
A simile compares two unlike things using the words like or as. The first example of a simile is, her hair is as yellow as the sun. In this simile, you are comparing the girl's hair to the sun. What is the same? They are both yellow. Another simile example is, he moves as slow as a snail. In this simile, you are comparing the boy and a snail. What is the same? They both are moving very slowly. Now let's learn about metaphors. A metaphor states that one thing is something else. It is a comparison of two things and does not use the words like or as. The dress is a rainbow of colors. In this metaphor, you are comparing the dress and a rainbow. They are both colorful. Her voice is music to my ears. In this metaphor, you are comparing the girl's voice to music. They both sound very pleasing.
Our third figure of speech is personification. This figure can be called a type of metaphor because in personification, we represent an inanimate object or an abstract idea as a person and give it human traits. In literature and in poetry, we often come across instances where inanimate objects such as the sun, the moon, the stars, the earth and the rivers etc. are personified. For example, when we say that the sun stretched his golden arms and greeted everyone with his kind smile, we are representing it as a person and talking about it in terms of human characteristics like stretching his arms, having a smile, etc. Similarly, when the famous poet William Wordsworth described the trees as fluttering and dancing in the breeze in his poem The Daffodils, an image like the one you see here springs up in the reader's minds as if trees, represented in human form, were dancing. Sometimes we personify an abstract idea such as justice. In courtroom dramas, one can often see a personification of justice as a woman with her eyes covered and balancing the scales. Though the blindfold represents the objectivity and impartiality in meting out justice, people often say that justice is blind and sometimes deaf whenever there are irregularities in the process. Our next figure of speech based on the sound effects is alliteration. Alliteration refers to the repetition of consonant sounds, especially at the beginning of words. Derived from the Latin word latera, that means letters of the alphabet, examples of alliteration abound in real life. From advertising slogans to warnings to tongue twisters and catchy names, alliteration is used everywhere. So when you are driving, you might come across the sign, "Don't drink and drive." Know the successive words start with the sound D. That's alliteration. Moving on to some catchy tongue twisters, who would not have tried the lines from tongue twisters such as Peter Piper or Betty Botter? So, if Peter Piper picked a peck of pickled peppers, that is alliteration for you, as the initial consonant sound P is repeated in successive words in the same sentence. And Betty Botter thinking, "But a bit of better butter will make my batter bitter." It is very tough and challenging to speak it out, and yet it's quite a bit of fun. So in this Betty Botter example, we notice the consonant sound B at the beginning of various words. And that's not it. There are so many brand and company names that are catchy and memorable because there is alliteration involved. The famous ones being Coca-Cola, Dunkin' Donuts, People, Kit Kat, etc. And finally, we have the famous cartoon characters such as Mickey Mouse, Donald Duck, and SpongeBob SquarePants, which have alliteration.
So now, again, what is metaphor? Metaphor is comparison, but not using as or like. For example, he is a thunderbolt on the court. Okay, so he is describing he or a man as thunder. Okay, simile. What is simile? Simile is a comparison using like and as. Her eyes are like pools of water. So here he describing the eyes as pools of water. What about personification? Here he compared an object to a human being. He compares something to a human being. The earth has swallowed all my hopes. So, earth can swallow like man? No. So here there is personification. He described earth as a man who is swallowing or eating. Alliteration. What do I mean by alliteration? Alliteration is repeated sounds in the same line. Words begin with the same sounds in the same line. So I say Sally sold seashells at the seashore. So this is a line. The S sound is repeated. I say Sally sold seashells at the seashore. So here the S sound is repeated in Sally sold seashells seashore. Now let's think about these lines. My watch died during third period today. This is the line. So here, this is personification. Why? Because he described his watch as a person who is died. The machine is like an angry old man. This is the machine. So this is simile. Why it's a simile? Because I have the word like. He described the machine as an old man. Thank you for your listening and goodbye.